Mary McAleese says she is not and never has been a Sinn Féin supporter. A senior Garda officer begins his investigation into the foreign affairs leaks. And confusion in Britain over EMU hits the financial markets. Good evening, welcome to 6-1. Also on the programme this evening, former Taoiseach Gareth Fitzgerald says the proposed constitutional amendment on cabinet confidentiality is inadequate and inappropriate.
Waterford is to get 650 new jobs in one of the biggest jobs enhancements ever in the southeast. And in the Northern Talks, the Ulster Unionists withdraw temporarily after comments by the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
The controversy surrounding presidential candidate Mary McAleese has intensified, with claims and counterclaims from politicians in the north and from government leaders in the Republic. The Taoiseach rejected a call by the leader of the Alliance Party, Lord Alderdice, for Professor McAleese to pull out of the presidential race. Lord Alderdice claimed her candidacy had become divisive and, rather than building bridges, was becoming a wedge in the Northern Ireland peace process. But his intervention was attacked by the SDLP, who dubbed it arrogant, and by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, David Andrews, who said it was unhelpful and unwise. The Sinn Féin President, Gerry Adams, spoke of a sinister campaign against Professor McAleese and singled out the Fine Gael leader, John Bruton, for criticism.
Lord Alderdice heads a moderate unionist party with links to the Progressive Democrats, and his comments this morning came as some surprise. He said that questions about Mary McAleese's attitude to Sinn Féin had not been cleared up, and rather than building bridges, her candidacy was now a divisive one and becoming a wedge in the peace process. She should withdraw from the contest, he said, in the interests of Northern Ireland.
It's clear that now, with all the damaging material that's emerging, the lack of trust that this is creating, that her continued candidature, I think, is a problem. If she were to be elected by the people of the Republic, it's been made clear by parties from SDLP right through, and I think quite clearly on the unionist side of the community, it would not be seen as a positive contribution to the peace process.
And that reference to the SDLP drew an immediate rebuke from the party's deputy leader.
Lord Alderdice in that statement purports to speak, arrogantly purports to speak on behalf of the SDLP, and even more arrogantly assumes to state what the SDLP think. Lord Alderdice has no right whatsoever, and indeed it is only the leader of the Alliance Party could assume to speak on behalf of the SDLP. And I would now ask the Alliance Party to have that reference to the SDLP removed from Lord Alderdice's statement.
Foreign Affairs Minister David Andrews said the remarks were unhelpful and unwise, while Gerry Adams spoke of a sinister campaign against Mary McAleese in the Republic and lamented the absence of a real debate on the issues.
Instead of this, we have division, we have distraction, we have vilification, and we have a campaign of McCarthyism. And you know all of the main players, and I think it's entirely reprehensible that one of those main players is the Taoiseach, a former Taoiseach, Mr. Bruton. I think it's entirely irresponsible and reprehensible that he should be leading the charge on these issues.
Meanwhile, David Trimble has protested about another aspect of the controversial campaign. He says one of the leaked documents shows the Irish government consulting with the SDLP about public appointments in the north.
The government hit back on behalf of Mary McAleese today. The Taoiseach described Lord Alderdice's call for her to withdraw from the race as regrettable. He also said he was absolutely certain the leaked memos did not come from within Fianna Fáil.
Bertie Ahern had refused to comment on the latest leaked memos controversy this morning, but this afternoon, following the intervention of John Alderdice, he quickly reversed that decision.
I'm disappointed that John should have said that. Great regard for John. I totally disagree with him, but he's entitled to his opinion.
Why do you think he said it, Taoiseach, now?
I don't know. I mean, you could ask him. I don't know. I just think it's regrettable.
He went on to say that Ms McAleese's endeavours with the Redemptorists and the chairman of the Irish News were to be commended.
I think their meetings took place with all kind of groups, and as we know that Mary McAleese attended some of those meetings and in a small way assisted. It involved her talking to political leaders, people from Sinn Féin, people from other walks of life, the Queen and many others.
Mr Ahern also said he would be contacting the Gardaí over the second set of memos which independent newspapers had refused to publish over the weekend. But while the Taoiseach was coming to her defence in the east, Mary McAleese was campaigning in the west in the Aran Islands this morning. She denied she was in any way sympathetic to Sinn Féin.
It's an election. There are 5 candidates in the field. They're all very good people, very honourable people, with very good and successful track records. But somebody in the background clearly is trying to create, well, maybe more than a hint of mischief for at least this candidate.
She denied she had ever pushed for a voting pact between Sinn Féin and the SDLP.
What we were about was trying to establish a ceasefire. And we knew, for example, that there could not and would not ever be that voting pact unless there was that ceasefire. And we were working very, very hard to try and bring that about. And we actually didn't manage to get it before the election, as you probably know and everybody knows.
Were you pleased? Meanwhile, campaigning in the foot of the Loom factory in County Donegal, Dana Rosemary Scallon said the leaked memos row was dragging the election into a free-for-all.
Well, whatever political parties are involved in this kind of a bear pit, you know, it's very unseemly, and it's really dragging the presidential race down to a general election where there's a free-for-all. That's not what the presidency is about. It's about being above politics and looking over the head of the politicians and into the hearts of the people in this country.
It was a theme echoed by Derek Nally in a Liveline interview this afternoon. Meanwhile, Eddie Roach was campaigning in Lough Ray. In a speech this evening, she's expected to blame the 2 main parties for the leaked memos controversy. But for the moment, the spotlight remains very much on Mary McAleese.
A short time ago, the Fine Gael leader, John Bruton, called on the Taoiseach to fully withdraw the false allegation that he leaked the Department of Foreign Affairs memo to the media. In a letter addressed to Bertie Ahern, he said the accusation amounted to a criminal offence, and he said he was surprised Mr Ahern had made the claim 5 days after the leak was published. He said the Taoiseach should withdraw the accusation in the Dáil this week.
The Garda investigation to discover the source of the confidential Foreign Affairs documents which have been leaked has begun. The Garda Commissioner has appointed the head of the National Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Sean Cameron, to try to establish who leaked the documents and why. The investigation team will begin interviewing officials from the Department of Foreign Affairs this week.
The Garda Commissioner, Pat Byrne, appointed the head of the National Bureau for Criminal Investigation over the weekend to carry out this investigation in response to a request from the Taoiseach Bertie Ahern. Chief Superintendent Sean Cameron was detailed on Saturday morning to investigate the source of all documents leaked from the Department of Foreign Affairs over the past week. The investigation team has already been in contact with the department, and arrangements are being made for Gardaí to question staff this week. All those who had access to the documents will be interviewed, and that may include senior politicians from all parties. The Sunday Independent is expected to cooperate with the investigation, but it is still not decided whether or not it will hand over the documents to the Gardaí. The last time an investigation of this type was set up was almost 4 years ago. Then the government asked the Gardaí to find out who leaked an Irish draft of an Anglo-Irish framework document to the Irish press. The journalist Emily O'Reilly, along with a number of government officials, were questioned by Gardaí, but the source of the leak was never discovered. The Gardaí say this will be a thorough investigation. The Chief Superintendent, Sean Cameron, will report to the Garda Commissioner every day on its progress. But there is real scepticism as to whether or not this investigation will actually get anywhere. And that scepticism goes to the highest levels in government, considering the fact that the Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern, has already said that he's doubtful there would be a satisfactory conclusion to a Garda investigation.
Well, joining us from our Dáil studio is our political editor, Donal Kelly. Donal, how do you assess the fallout of Lord Alderdice's intervention in the presidential campaign?
Well, first of all, Una, I think it is somewhat surprising that Lord Alderdice should have chosen to so publicly intervene in the presidential election on such a sensitive issue. I think it is quite unprecedented for a politician in one jurisdiction to call on an electoral candidate in another to step down or withdraw. However, he appears to have done so because he seems to believe that the furore created around Mary McAleese is in some way damaging to the peace process. Now, in that regard, the government parties would say he's actually missing the point. They would say what could well be damaging to the peace process in its widest sense is the leaking of confidential foreign affairs documents on information gathering in the north. And while admittedly the catalyst for the leaks was Mary McAleese's candidature, she can't be held responsible for the leaks.
Well, all this, the leaks, Lord Alderdice, etc., they are putting the North and the peace process firmly in the centre of the presidential campaign, are they not?
Well, I suppose it's hard to see how the North wasn't going to figure in the campaign at some level, given that 2 of the 5 candidates are from up there. And inevitably, given Mary McAleese's strong stand throughout her career on a whole range of issues of concern to nationalists, she was always going to be put particularly under the microscope. But given that, it is puzzling that from day one, Professor McAleese, who was keen to tell the electorate of her capacity to build bridges between people in the North, wasn't more forthcoming at her various press conferences about her involvement, for instance, in the Redemptor's Peace Initiative. It seems to me that could have been made a positive element in her campaign. Instead, it seemed to have been pushed into the background, so that when it did come out, she was forced to tackle the negative aspect of it, arising from her contacts with Sinn Féin. And in that regard, I think she did herself no favours in Galway last night by repeatedly refusing to answer journalist questions arising from the documents leaked at the weekend.
Well, with just 11 days to go, where is the campaign moving now?
Well, the political parties will obviously be anxious to determine the impact of this entire controversy on the campaign. You'll remember that the last opinion poll showed Mary McAleese dropping 3 points. That was credited to the intervention of Derek Nally in the poll. But Mary McAleese was still well in the lead. Now, I suppose until the next poll comes out, we won't really be able to determine whether the controversy has damaged Mary McAleese or redounded to her advantage. The electorate, it seems to me, will have to decide whether she's been the subject of a smear campaign, as Fianna Fáil allege, or whether she has left questions unanswered about her relationship with Sinn Féin. And it may well be the end of the week before the pollsters enlighten us on that.
Donald Kelly from our Dáil studio, thank you for talking to us.
Former Taoiseach Gareth